Story time, story time, story time again. Story time, story time, story time again.
Hello, and welcome to San Bruno Library Presents Once Upon a Time, your television story time from the San Bruno Library. My name is Barbara, and I'm the children's librarian at the library, and we're going to spend the next half hour sharing songs and rhymes and stories from the library. Let's get started. Are you ready to join me in our opening song? Okay. We're glad you're here today. We're glad you're here today. Hi ho the merry-o. We're glad you're here today. Good. Let's do it again one more time, okay? We're glad you're here today. We're glad you're here today. Hi ho the merry-o. We're glad you're here today. Now take your hands like this. Let's open them and shut them. Open, shut them, open, shut them. Give a little clap, clap, clap. Open, shut them, open, shut them. Put them in your lap. Creep them, crawl them, creep them, crawl them. Right up to your chin, chin, chin. Open up your little mouth, but do not let them in. Don't let them in. Very good. I'm glad to see you're so ready to pay attention and play this morning. All right, let's read our first book. This book is about going to the library. Lola at the Library by Anna McQuinn and Rosalind Beardshaw. Let's find out about Lola's day. Lola loves Tuesdays. On Tuesdays, Lola and her mommy go to the library. The library opens at 9 o'clock, but Lola is ready to go long before that. Lola would have to wait a little bit longer for the San Bruno Library, right? We open at 10 o'clock. She puts all the books she borrowed last week in her backpack. Her library card is also very important. The library is not very far away, so Lola and her mommy always walk there. Lola and her mommy give back the books from last week. The librarian buzzes them through the machine to check them in. There is a special section in the library just for children. It's really cool. Nobody ever says shh. Sometimes there is singing. Lola knows all the words and the hands for Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Sometimes there is story time. Lola loves that. After story time, Lola chooses her books. In the library, she can have any book she wants. Lola likes stories with bears and anything with shoes. There are so many, it takes ages to choose. Mommy has some books too. The librarian buzzes them through the machine, then stamps the date inside. Lola must bring them back in 2 weeks, but she will probably be back for more long before then. And at our library, you can keep them for 3 weeks. Lola and her mommy always get a snack after visiting the library. Mommy has a cappuccino and Lola has juice. Whenever Lola has been good, her mommy lets her taste some of the foam. Then it's time to go home again. Every night after Lola is tucked in bed, her mommy reads her a story. It's the best way to end the day. And that's the story of Lola at the library. So let's put this down here. And let's do another rhyme like we would do at story time at the library. How about, oh, one of my favorites. Let's do Inside the Space Shuttle. Do you know this one? You give yourself a hug like this. Inside the space shuttle, just enough room. Here comes the countdown. Hold your hands up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, zoom! Okay, let's do that again. Inside the space shuttle, just enough room. Here comes the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, zoom! Very good. Okay, our next story is also a library story. It's called Library Lion by Michelle Knudsen and illustrated by Kevin Hawkes. This is about an old-fashioned library. See the lion going in? One day, a lion came to the library. He walked right past the circulation desk and up into the stacks. Mr. McBee ran down the hall to the head librarian's office. "Miss Merriweather," he called. "No running," said Miss Merriweather without looking up. "But there's a lion," said Mr. McBee, "in the library." "Is he breaking any rules?" asked Miss Merriweather. She was very particular about rule breaking. "Well, no," said Mr. McBee, "not really." "Then leave him be." The lion wandered all around the library. He sniffed the card catalog. He rubbed his head against the new book collection. Then he padded over to the story corner and went to sleep. No one was sure what to do. There weren't any rules about lions in the library. Soon it was time for story hour. There weren't any rules about lions at story hour either. The story lady seemed a little nervous, but she read out the first book's title in a good, clear voice. The lion looked up. The story lady kept reading. The lion stayed for the next story and the story after that. He waited for another story, but the children began to walk away. "Story hour is over," a little girl told him. "It's time to go." The lion looked at the children. He looked at the story lady. He looked at the closed books. Then he roared very loud, "Roar!" Miss Merriweather came striding out of her office. "Who is making that noise?" she demanded. "It's the lion," said Mr. McBee. Miss Merriweather marched over to the lion. "If you cannot be quiet, you will have to leave," she said in a stern voice. "Those are the rules." The lion kept roaring. He sounded sad. The little girl tugged on Miss Merriweather's dress. "If he promises to be quiet, can he come back for story hour tomorrow?" she asked. The lion stopped roaring. He looked at Miss Merriweather. Miss Merriweather looked back. Then she said, "Yes, a nice, quiet lion would certainly be allowed to come back for story hour tomorrow." "Hooray!" said the children. The next day the lion came back. "You are early," said Miss Merriweather. "Story hour is not until 3 o'clock." The lion did not budge. "Very well," said Miss Merriweather. "You might as well make yourself useful." She sent him off to dust the encyclopedias until it was time for story hour. The next day the lion came early again. This time Miss Merriweather asked him to lick all the envelopes for the overdue notices. Soon the lion began doing things without being asked. He dusted the encyclopedias. He licked the envelopes. He let small children stand on his back to reach books on the highest shelves. Then he curled up in the story corner to wait for story hour to begin. At first, people in the library were nervous about the lion, but soon they got used to having him around. In fact, he seemed very well suited for the library. His big feet were quiet on the library floor. He made a comfy backrest for the children at story hour, and he never roared in the library anymore. "What a helpful lion," people said. They patted his soft head as he walked by. How did we get along without him? Mr. McBee scowled when he heard that. No lions were needed. They had always gotten along fine before. Lions, he thought, could not understand rules. They did not belong in the library. One day, after he had dusted all the encyclopedias and licked all the envelopes and helped all the small children, the lion padded down the hall to Miss Merriweather's office to see what else there was to do. There was still some time left before story hour. "Hello, Lion," said Miss Merriweather. "I know something you can do. You can bring a book back into the stacks for me. Just let me get it down off from the shelf." Miss Merriweather stepped up onto the step stool. The book was just out of reach. Miss Merriweather stood on her toes. She stretched out her fingers. "Almost there," she said. Then Miss Merriweather stretched a little too far. "Ouch!" said Miss Merriweather softly. She did not get up. "Mr. McBee," she called after a minute. "Mr. McBee." But Mr. McBee was at the circulation desk. He could not hear her calling. "Lion," said Miss Merriweather, "please go and get Mr. McBee." The lion ran down the hall. "No running," Miss Merriweather called after him. But he put his big front paws up on the circulation desk and looked at Mr. McBee. "Go away, Lion," said Mr. McBee. "I'm busy." The lion whined. He pointed his nose down the hall towards Miss Merriweather's office. Mr. McBee ignored him. Finally, the lion did the only thing he could think of to do. He looked at Mr. McBee right in the eye. Then he opened his mouth very wide and he roared his loudest roar he had ever roared in his life. Roar! Mr. McBee gasped. "You're not being quiet," he said to the lion. "You're breaking the rules." Mr. McBee walked down the hall as fast as he could. The lion did not follow him. He had broken the rules. He knew what that meant. He hung his head and walked toward the stairs. Mr. McBee did not notice. "Miss Merriweather," he called as he walked. "Miss Merriweather, the lion broke the rules." The lion broke the rules. He burst into Miss Merriweather's office. She was not in her chair. "Miss Merriweather?" he asked. "Sometimes," said Miss Merriweather from the floor behind her desk, "there is a good reason to break the rules, even in the library. Now please go call a doctor. I think I've broken my arm." Mr. McBee ran to call a doctor. "No running," Miss Merriweather called after him. The next day things were back to normal. Almost. Miss Merriweather's left arm was in a cast. The doctor had told her not to work too hard. "I will have my lion to help me," Miss Merriweather thought. But the lion did not come to the library that morning. At 3 o'clock, Miss Merriweather walked over to the story corner. The story lady was just beginning a story for the children. The lion was not there. People in the library kept looking up from their books and computer screens, hoping they would see a familiar furry face, but the lion did not come that day. The lion did not come the next day either, or the day after that. One evening, Mr. McBee stopped by Miss Merriweather's office on his way out. "Can I do anything for you before I go, Miss Merriweather?" he asked her. "No, thank you," said Miss Merriweather. She was looking out the window. Her voice was very quiet, even for the library. Mr. McBee frowned as he walked away. He thought there was probably something he could do for Miss Merriweather after all. Mr. McBee left the library, but he did not go home. He walked around the neighborhood. He looked under cars. He looked behind bushes. He looked in backyards and trash cans and tree houses. Finally, he circled all the way back to the library. The lion was sitting outside looking in through glass doors. "Hello, Lion," said Mr. McBee. The lion did not turn around. "I thought you might like to know," said Mr. McBee, "that there's a new rule at the library. No roaring allowed unless you have a very good reason. say, if you're trying to help a friend who's been hurt, for example. The lion's ears twitched. He turned around, but Mr. McBee was already walking away. The next day, Mr. McBee walked down the hall to Miss Merriweather's office. "What is it, Mr. McBee?" asked Miss Merriweather in her new, sad, quiet voice. "I thought you might like to know," said Mr. McBee, "that there's a lion in the library." Miss Merriweather jumped up from her chair and ran down the hall. Mr. McBee smiled. "No running," he called after her. Miss Merriweather did not listen. Sometimes there is a good reason to break the rules, even in the library. And that's the story of the library lion. Okay, we're going to take a little break now. And so don't go away. We've got some more stories to share with you and some more rhymes and songs. So we'll see you in a minute.
Stop, look, and wave. It's not just for making friends, it's for saving lives. Brought to you by the San Bruno Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee and San Bruno Cable TV.
I'm Smith.
And I'm Joe.
And we're conducting an experiment to see if people like trash in their homes.
Yeah?
Hello, sir. Please step back.
What do you... Wait, hold on a second! Whoa! What? Who are you guys?
Aha! Judging from your reaction, it looks like you don't like trash in your home.
No, of course not, but...
Sir, this is yours. We saw you dump it out of your car on the freeway.
Oh, see, I was
Is California your home, sir?
Obviously.
And you don't like trash in your home.
No, of course
Then why
not.
would you trash California?
Don't trash California.
Hi, welcome back to Once Upon a Time, our library story time on San Bruno Cable. I'm so glad you're here, and we are going to read a part of this book. This book is called Frog and Toad Together by Arnold Lobel, and there's several stories in this book. I'm just going to read you one of them. This story is called The Garden. Frog was in his garden. Toad came walking by. "What a fine garden you have, Frog," he said. "Yes," said Frog, "it is very nice, but it was hard work." "I wish I had a garden," said Toad. "Here are some flower seeds. Plant them in the ground," said Frog. "Soon you will have a garden." "How soon?" asked Toad. "Quite soon," said Frog. Toad ran home. He planted the flower seeds. "Now, seeds," said Toad, "start growing." Toad walked up and down a few times. The seeds did not grow. Toad put his head close to the ground and said loudly, "Now, seeds, start growing." Toad looked at the ground again. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head very close to the ground and shouted, "Now, seeds, start growing." Frog came running up the path. "What is all this noise?" he asked. "My seeds will not grow," said Toad. "You are shouting too much," said Frog. "These poor seeds are afraid to grow." "My seeds are afraid to grow?" said Toad. "Of course," said Frog. "Leave them alone for a few days. Let the sun shine on them. Let the rain fall on them. soon your seeds will start to grow. That night, Toad looked out his window. "Drat," said Toad, "my seeds have not started to grow. They must be afraid of the dark." Toad went out to his garden with some candles. "I will read the seeds a story," said Toad. "Then they will not be afraid." Toad read a long story to his seeds. All the next day, Toad sang songs to his seeds, and all the next day, Toad read poems to his seeds, and all the next day, Toad played music for his seeds. Toad looked at the ground. The seeds did still not start to grow. "What shall I do?" cried Toad. "These must be the most frightened seeds in the whole world." Then Toad felt very tired, and he fell asleep. "Toad, Toad, wake up!" said Frog. "Look at your garden." Toad looked at his garden. Little green plants were coming up out of the ground. "At last," shouted Toad, "my seeds have stopped being afraid to grow." "And now you will have a nice garden, too," said Frog. "Yes," said Toad. "But you were right, Frog. It was very hard work." And that's the story of the seeds in Frog and Toad together. There's lots of other good stories in this book. Okay, let's do a growing rhyme, a garden rhyme. We have 5 little peas in a pea pod pressed. Are you ready? 5 little peas in a pea pod pressed. Just like that. 1 grew, 2 grew, and so did all the rest. They grew and they grew and they did not stop. They grew and they grew till the pod went pop. Very good. Let's do that again. 5 little peas in a pea pod pressed. 1 grew, 2 grew, and so did all the rest. They grew and they grew and they did not stop. They grew and they grew till the pod went pop. Very good. All right. I have a friend here. Hello. Hello, friend. Hello. Hello. You see my frog here? All right. We are going to sing a song that goes like this. Blah loomp went the little green frog. Can you do that? Blah loomp. All right. Let's do that. Blah loomp went the little green frog one day. Blah loomp went the little green frog. Blah loomp went the little green frog one day, and his eyes went gloop, gloop, gloop. Let's do that one more time. Blah loomp went the little green frog one day. Blah loomp went the little green frog. Blah loomp went the little green frog one day, and his eyes went gloop, gloop, gloop. That's fun. All right. I have a story here that's a lot of fun. It has hardly any words. It's called Hug by Jez Alborough. There's our little guy. Hug. Come on. Hug. There's the elephants. Hug. The chameleons, the snakes. Everyone's getting a hug except the little guy. Hug. 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 He really needs a hug. Hug. Bobo. There's his mama. Mommy. Hug. Hug! Hooray! Mommy. Bobo. And that's the story of Hug. This is a good one to take home and look at all the pictures. Let's put it here. I have one more story to share with you. It's called Little Gorilla by Ruth Bornstein. Once there was a little gorilla, and everybody loved him. His mother loved him. His father loved him. His grandma and grandpa, his aunts and uncles loved him. Even when he was only 1 day old, everybody loved little gorilla. Pink butterfly flying through the forest, green parrot in his tree, and red monkey in her tree all loved little gorilla. Even big boa constrictor thought little gorilla was nice. Giraffe, walking tall through the forest, was there when little gorilla needed him. Young elephant and old elephant, too, came to see him. Lion roared his loudest roar for him. Even old hippo took him wherever he wanted to go because she loved little gorilla. Just about everybody in the great green forest loved little gorilla. Then one day, something happened. Little gorilla began to grow and grow and grow and grow. And one day, little gorilla was big. And everybody came and everybody sang, "Happy birthday, little gorilla." And everybody still loved him. And that's the story of little gorilla. And those are the stories we have for you this morning. I'm so glad you joined us, and I hope you'll come to the library. Did you know we have story time at the library too? You can find out about it by going on our website or calling us or coming into the library. We have story time every week. I hope to see you there.
So sit me down and let the spell begin. I'll find myself in story time again. Story time, story time, story time again. Story time, story time, story time again.